I'm Debbie Harwell, and I'm here with Kelly Chevalier. And we're in Houston, and it is January 27th, 2014, and we're going to talk about your career in the military and what you are doing today with Trauma to Triumph.
Great, thank you. I'm very honored that you're interviewing me today.
Well, I'm honored as well, and first I want to tell you thanks for serving our country. It's very important, particularly in today's world where we're depending on volunteers.
Yeah.
To have people who are willing to serve, and I just want to say we appreciate that.
Thank you. Thanks for your support.
First, let's start with when and where you were born.
I was born here in Houston, Texas, 1974. I was born August 21st to Maurice Chevalier, not the Maurice Chevalier, but Maurice Chevalier III, and my mom is, her maiden name is Hightower, Patricia Hightower. So right here, I went to school here. I didn't leave here until I joined the Army.
Oh boy, and where'd you go to high school?
I went to a few different high schools. I grew up in the Clear Creek district, so I went to Clear Brook High School first. And then I noticed that my cousin, who was going to Jack Yates High School, which was just right down the road, she was getting all kinds of offers to go to school and scholarships and all kinds of things, and she had a 3.0. Well, I had a 3.0, but I was getting nothing. And I said, well, I'm packing my bags, I'm going to Jack Yates. So I actually ended up graduating from Jack Yates High School. I went there 1 year, and I did get a full ride to Texas Southern University.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah,
that's great. So tell me, did you always aspire to be in the military?
Absolutely not. If you ask any one of my friends or family members, they will tell you this was the most out of character thing I've ever done in my life, because I was such a girly girl. You know, I had to have my nails done, I had to have my hair done, and cute little dresses and bows, and no, like I was saying, I went to Texas Southern University with a full ride, and I flunked out.
Oh no.
I flunked out. I lost my scholarship. I had to return back home, and I didn't want to go live at home. I didn't want to go stay with mom anymore, so I joined the Army, hoping that I would get more college money. And I initially signed up just to do about, I think my first contract was 6 years. And I was going to get out and go back to school. And 6 years turned into almost 20.
Boy. Now, who recruited you? Or how were you recruited?
It was crazy, because right as I was getting this, actually the exact same day that I was getting my grades in the mail, I got a phone call from a recruiter, and he said, you took the ASVAB when you graduated from high school and you scored very high, and I just want to meet with you for a little while and talk about your options. And I said, look, guy, you know what, I'm not interested unless you can get me some money for school, because I cannot live here at my mom's house. Oh my God, that was music to his ears. That's exactly what he wanted to hear. And he said, well, you know, come on down, let's see what kind of things we got going on for you. And at the time, all I wanted to do was travel the world. I had been studying French, and I wanted to speak French and eat French food and, you know, sit at a cafe in Paris. That's all I wanted to do. So I said, look, can you get me to Paris? I want to go to Paris. And he was like, oh, sure, you can go to Paris. You can be in Paris all the time if you want to. And he was just feeding me a bunch of bull. But he said, you can be a linguist. And I said, oh, great. So I took the exam to be a French linguist. And I was all ready to go. And I'm sitting down and getting ready to sign the paperwork. And the guy across the desk tells me, well, you realize you have to go airborne to be a linguist. And I was like, airborne? I don't understand. What are you talking about? And he said, oh, you're going to have to jump out of planes. I was like, jump up? Oh, no. Go ahead, look up something else for me. I will not be jumping out of a perfectly good airplane, thank you very much. And he said, well, let's see what else you have here. And because my scores were really high, I could pretty much do anything. And I said, well, give me something in the medical field because I dropped out of pharmacy school and, this might make my family happy if I kind of stayed in the medical field. And so he said, well, we have biomedical equipment repair technician. And I said, okay, what is that? And he said, you're going to repair medical equipment. Great. Sign me up. I'll take it. And so that's what I ended up doing. My first almost 4 years, that's what I did. I repaired medical equipment for the Army.
Wow.
And it was great. Great job.
And where were you stationed? Here in the U.S.?
I was stationed in the U.S. I went to Fitzsimmons Army Medical Center, which no longer exists, but it's in Colorado. And that's where I went to school for about a year. And then they sent me to Fort Sam, Houston, because I wanted to kind of be close to home. That was as close as I could get to home, Fort Sam. And it's also a medical post, so it made sense. It's a big hospital there. And so I went there, but I had the opportunity to field some new equipment. And I volunteered to be sort of the VIP spokesperson for this equipment. And my colonel saw me and he said, you know what, I think you should be an officer. And I said, really? He said, you know what, I'm going to do all the paperwork for you. And I said, okay. He did. He did all the paperwork for me to go green to gold. All I had to do was sign on the dotted line. And green to gold is a full ride to school. I could go anywhere I wanted to go. So of course I went back home. That's when I went to University of Houston and I finished my degree, my bachelor's degree. And I studied English, which is something I had always wanted to do. I felt like there were no limits at this point. I just will do what I really wanted to do. So I studied, my major was in English, and I had a great time. I finished my degree in 3 years at U of H, and I was given the salute and pinning on my rank and going right back to active duty again.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So during that 3 years, did you have to go like reserves or something where you go and do training periodically or to stay involved, or you just got to go to school?
I went, it was school full time.
Sorry, I'm just checking. Is everything okay, ladies?
Okay, thank you. I went to school full time, and I did work in the Vet Affairs Center at University of Houston to try to earn some money. But I used my my GI Bill, and I already had a full, all my tuition was paid for through the scholarship. But then I also did use a GI Bill so I wouldn't have to work. This way I could go to school full time and I could still have money to live off of. And so I had a small apartment, and by this time I was a single mom. I had I think my son was probably 2 years old at the time, and I worked at the vet center, and then I also went into the reserves, and I did that for 1 weekend a month just to earn a little extra money a month there. And that's how I got through it. So I had a little small apartment, and my son and I, he went to daycare and I went to school all day. That's how we made it.
That's a good arrangement.
Yeah.
So then, obviously you made a big transition from school to serving overseas. Tell me how that happened.
Talk about transition. I didn't get a whole lot of time because when I was graduating in 2000 from U of H, the Bosnia-Kosovo conflict, I'm not sure what they titled it, but that was going on. So I left U of H. I was sent to Germany, and I was stationed at Babenhausen Kaserne in Germany. It's hard to say where it is, somewhere near Darmstadt. And I was selected to lead a group of people, just a small group of people, to go into Kosovo. And our job was to run the transition center. Basically, the combat units that are leaving Kosovo go through us. We provide them everything. We get their manifest for their flights and all that sort of thing. We make sure that they have a place to stay and that they're getting their food and they're getting rest. And then we also accept the combat unit that's coming in. So they're doing a swap. So we're kind of like those folks that are staying in place to help that transition occur. So we did that for about 6 months, and I left, and it wasn't too much longer before 9/11 happened, and we were off to Iraq. So yeah, it was definitely a transition.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Tell me about your experience there. And at some point, you obviously must have signed up for longer than the 6 years.
Yes, well, once you accept the scholarship, then you have signed on for an additional 4.
Okay.
But when you're an officer, it's not like your contract ends. You have to actually resign your commission.
Your career.
So the clock just keeps going until you give notice that you're ready to transition out of military.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I, at that point, was in it for the long haul because I had already done, I had another 4-year contract. I'd already done 4 years plus 3 years of school where I was in the reserves. I mean, I was at 10. I wasn't going to back up at that point, so I knew I was going to go ahead and retire by that point. And so we went in, we were the very first unit, one of the very first logistics units to go into Iraq. And it was madness because we weren't really prepared. There was no infrastructure there for us, and we were there really building that infrastructure. So what you saw during the surge in 2007, 2008, we were the ones who laid that groundwork. And when we went in, literally, while we were on the plane, wheels down, about to hit the runway, we came under a Scud missile attack. And it was crazy. So it was dead silence on the plane. I mean, you could hear a pin drop. Nobody was talking. No one was even turning their head. It was just, you could just hear your heartbeat and your own breath. And we were told to just stay where we were. It was safer for us to stay in the plane than for us to try to, disembark and, move to another shelter. So we waited that out. We got to our little campsite, and it was another attack at the Victory base where we were. Crazy, because I remember putting on all my gear, the gas mask and the whole green Martian outfit, And the alarm started sounding. You knew the missiles were coming. Of course, you don't know if it's going to land on your head or not. And I just started running for the nearest bunker. I went to the first one, and I looked inside, and there was nothing but big, bright eyes peeping back at me. It was about, 50 pairs of eyes looking back at me. There was no room in there. And I said, oh no. I ran to the next bunker, looked inside, same thing. All these eyes. Everyone's silent. Nobody says a word. They're just silent, like, God, get me through this, And after I ran to the third bunker and I saw the same thing, I just laid on the ground and I just said, well, Lord, this is it. There's no place for me to go. And so I just laid on the ground and said, okay, come with me. And that was like, welcome to Iraq.
Nobody said, come in, we'll make room for you?
Not a single soul. Not a single soul. They were terrified too. They weren't like, it was packed in there, but nobody was like, I'm going to move and let you get it. No, none of that. It was packed. But we started going towards our next campsite, because basically our job was to make sure that the combat units, which at this time were Marines, had fuel and food and water and that sort of thing to keep pushing closer and closer to Baghdad. So we got in our convoy and headed out and got to, you've heard of the whole Jessica Lynch situation? Okay. We were actually in a convoy trailing hers. We were going to the same destination. And we stopped to refuel, and her convoy kept going. Well, on the map, the road you're supposed to take is like this little dusty trail. You would think that it's got to be the wrong road. Right next to it is a hardball road. You're like, oh, that's probably more like what we're supposed to be on. They're very, very close. And so we stopped to get fuel, and we heard that road, that hardball road, the one we thought we were supposed to take, was black, which means it's under fire. And the fuel guys were like, that road's black. Your best bet is to just keep it moving. Well, at the same time, a sandstorm of biblical proportion was coming our way. This was like, I expected locusts and frogs to come out of it. It was like that. And our S2, which is our intel officer, was kind of evaluating the situation, and his recommendation was that we went a long way around, risking